It started as a journey of a lifetime, a young couple in love, a van, and a dream of exploring America's beautiful national parks. But by the end of the summer of 2021, what should have been an adventure became a nationwide nightmare. Gabby Petito, a vibrant 22-year-old, vanished, and her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, returned home alone. Welcome to Macabre Mondays, where mystery meets the macabre. I'm Ale.
And I'm Tom.
Your guides into the strange and the sinister. And this week, we're peeling back the layers of the Gabby Petito case, one piece at a time. So, Tom, have you ever heard of the Gabby Petito case?
I have.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Interesting.
Yeah, not a lot. I've heard basically anything that I've seen on TikTok.
Right.
Not a lot.
And I think it's kind of a story to start off with, because when me and you first started dating, this was actually, it was like in the headlines. And funny enough, me and you actually were planning to do kind of like a cross country exploring all the national parks. Yep. And I remember I had just met you and I was telling my family, and they're like, you need to be careful. Like, don't you see Gabby Petito on the news and everything? And I'm like, wow, that is so crazy.
I mean, to be fair, you and your family both thought that I was like a serial killer.
Yes.
Like, I still remember the first date. You were like all worried about everything, and I was like, we're just going on a date.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can never be too safe. I mean, as you can tell, I love true crime and paranormal stuff. So, well, let me paint you the picture of the Gabby Petito case. So Gabby Petito was a 22-year-old travel vlogger from Blue Point, New York. Described as a vibrant, adventurous spirit, Gabby had dreams of exploring the world, capturing her experiences on social media for every one of her followers to see. She was creative, bubbly. I mean, just looking at her, she was this ball of light. She loved the outdoors and was a big animal lover, often sharing snippets of her life with her followers. However, behind the scenes, Gabby's journey would take a devastating turn, one that social media's rose-colored filter couldn't hide. There was tension in Gabby and Brian's relationship, something that would become clear through encounters with strangers, police, and ultimately Gabby's family. It's just really unsettling that what we see on social media painted a completely different picture of what we know now. And that's the big part of what makes this case so haunting, that social media just gives you this glimpse of like this perfect relationship, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, like they had their issues, but it was just like
they ended up having more than issues because
well, I mean, obviously, but
right.
I mean it seems like when you look at it from social media, it was just looking at celebrities and other like massive influencers. It's like, oh, I hope that I have a relationship like theirs.
Right. And you just never know what's going on behind doors. So that's why it's good to not compare. And you really don't know what you're seeing. It's just kind of like, it's up for show sometimes. So let's break down the key events in Gabby's story to just really understand how things unfolded. This timeline is going to be very important because every interaction, every sighting helps us piece together the overall story. So I'll start with Gabby and Brian lived together at one of his parents' properties, rent-free in Northport, Florida in 2019. At the time, Gabby was a pharmacy tech at Publix, while Brian worked in the grocery department. According to posts on both Gabby and Brian's Instagram account, they had started dating around March of 2019 and got engaged in July of 2020. Since they got engaged during the pandemic, like many, that essentially postponed any wedding plans, as it did to so many across the world. They had talked about leaving Florida to embark on a cross-country trip to visit all the national parks in the U.S. Both Gabby and Brian wanted to downsize their lives and travel full-time, the dream. They wanted to document their travel journey and essentially become vloggers on YouTube and all social media platforms. So Gabby bought a 2012 Ford Transit Connect, a van, and they had converted it into a camper for space and long-distance hiking. This would be the vehicle they would live out of and travel. Now, it's good to note that this was her van. I'm just going to note that right now. Okay. They left Florida and made their way up the coast, first visiting some family along the way, and then beginning their trip from New York, where Gabby is originally from. July 2nd of 2021, Gabby and Brian leave New York to start their journey, okay? Now, over the next several weeks, they traveled through states like Kansas, Colorado, and Utah, sharing a lot of highlights from the road, which for all of you listening, I will be posting photos in a certain order on all the social medias where you can find Macabre Mondays, so you can also get a visual of everything that we're chatting through. July 2nd of 2021, Gabby and Brian leave New York to start their journey. Over the next several weeks, they travel through states like Kansas, Colorado, and Utah, sharing highlights from the road. And a little bit later, like about a little bit over a month later, on August 12th of 2021, in Moab, Utah, a witness calls 911 after seeing Brian slap Gabby in a parking lot. And about an hour later, police pulled them over, capturing a very tense scene on body cam footage.
Hold on, an hour after somebody saw him?
Well, yeah, because the police, like, they left.
Yeah, but nobody, like, it wasn't an immediate... It took an hour?
They called the cops. Obviously, when the witness saw that she got slapped, they called the cops, like, something's going on, domestic violence. And it took about an hour later, but they were on the road already. So I think that probably had to do why, because they ended up pulling them over.
Yeah.
So about an hour later, the police find them and were able to pull them over, capturing a really tense scene on the body cam footage. And so in the footage, Gabby appears really distraught, explaining that she suffers from anxiety and OCD, which sometimes apparently causes friction between them. And you could just tell that she's very anxious in this footage. She is feeling bad. She's blaming herself, claiming that she actually struck Brian first during a fight. And so that's what prompted him to slap her. But have you seen the footage before?
I've seen some of it, and you can tell, like, the minute the officer got there, you could kind of tell her demeanor just immediately was, oh no, like, I don't want him to get in trouble.
Right. And it's unfortunate because when you watch the footage, it infuriates me so much because he's chatting up with these cops and he's putting on a smile, he's making jokes, he's like, you didn't just slap your fiance, and she isn't crying on the side of the road in the police car. Like, it just,
he played it off as if it was just like another day. He was just like, the cops are here, so silly.
He's like, I really need to dig myself out of here. And it's kind of, and he was just pretty much victim blaming, like, didn't
literally
take any,
saying that it was all her.
Yeah, and it's just, ugh. So while Brian is over there, like I said, charming his way through the cops, laughing, giggling, making all this small talk with the police, like he didn't just smack her an hour ago. Sadly, at the end of this tense situation, the police end up suggesting that the two spend the night apart, but no arrests were made, despite noticing visible injuries on Gabby's face. And so, funny enough, Brian takes Gabby's van, and Gabby stays at a hotel.
Which I was just going to say, it's just odd already, the fact, I feel like that should have been a tell sign from the beginning of the fact that she was the one that was just like, take whatever you want, because like, I don't want to deal with this situation right now. In
that sense, it just seemed like that's kind of what the cops had directed them to do, which I don't know. I just feel like that incident was a pivotal point, and I think it was such a chance for intervention that really just slipped by, It
really was.
Yeah. And a lot of people wonder till this day that had the police handled that situation differently, could Gabby have been saved? Because she'd still be alive. Yeah. And many argued that seeing she had all these apparent signs, of domestic violence, or just, after we already know from witnesses that she got slapped, why didn't they just do more while they were there?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like he charmed his way out of it again.
Yeah. I think it also could have come down to training though too, because like I feel like a lot of times maybe more of your senior cops or cops that are experiencing this more often, like if these are just highway patrol officers, like how often, in all reality, often are they actually having to respond to a domestic? Well,
I think it was a actual local police department. Yes. So that's also what pretty much sparked such an uproar about that, because when you really like look at the footage, it's just so,
I mean, you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell, and I feel like she was in distress, and I don't know, it's just, I think knowing the outcome is what makes you look back and be like, shoulda, woulda, coulda, why didn't they try this, why didn't they do that? It's very unfortunate, and that's the thing, right? Like up until he slapped her and that whole situation happened, everything happened, Gabby had remained in contact with her family and Brian with his. And so they had posted images and videos of their adventures, a lot of breathtaking scenes along the way. It was, I mean, when you look at their social media accounts, like it was influencer quality photos and sceneries and stuff. I remember
like looking at a little bit of it just because I remember that was obviously around the time you and I started dating. And I remember you were obsessed with the case.
Yeah.
And so I remember just occasionally glancing over and I'd see you have their like Instagram up on your Instagram. And I'm like, oh, wow. It looked like they were legit travel content creators.
Yeah.
What you typically see.
Right. No, it really was. And it's just so sad to see how it ended up, you know, so many people aspire to want to do things like that and be free and not, you know, explore and do these things that they want, but they can. And in the end, this was just such a sad story. It's just one of those really most heartbreaking what ifs in the case. But a couple weeks later, on August 27th of 2021, another concerning incident is reported. Witnesses in Jackson, Wyoming claim they saw Gabby and Brian arguing in a restaurant where Gabby appeared visibly upset. This is the last known time Gabby was seen in public.
Okay, now this I did not know. I knew about the stop, but the fact that, so they had like a public argument.
On August 27th of 2021, another concerning incident is reported. So witnesses in Jackson, Wyoming claim they saw Gabby and Brian arguing in a restaurant. Gabby appeared visibly upset. This is the last known time Gabby was seen in public.
So they've had now another public dispute.
Yes, so there was this Louisiana couple on vacation in Jackson, Wyoming at the time, and they reported witnessing the tense interaction between Gabby and Brian at this like Tex-Mex restaurant that was called the Mary Piglets. Now, Nina Angelo, the woman in the Louisiana couple, shared that she and her boyfriend, Matt, watched a commotion involving the couple as they exited the restaurant on August 27th. Now, Nina described Gabby very visibly upset. She was in tears, and Brian appeared to be visibly angry, repeatedly going in and out of the restaurant and expressing kind of like this frustration while they're standing around the hostess stand.
Was it as if she was like trying to get away from him?
Everything that I've been researching, which by the way, thanks CNN for this great article. But everything I've been researching, it just seems like it could have just been a typical, you know, couples fight that just kind of like
broke out.
Yeah, that broke out or something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the couple's waitress seemed like really rattled by the incident, and Nina just emphasized that she did not see any physical confrontation between Gabby and Brian. The restaurant manager actually confirmed that the incident did occur that day and that she contacted the FBI regarding it afterwards. Obviously, we don't know, they didn't know what was happening at the time, but like knowing these key events now after seeing what happened just kind of adds a little bit more flow. Yeah.
I mean, imagine also being like part of it and then all of a sudden you see everything after. I'd be like, oh,
I know.
Did I not say enough?
Right. And you just never know a lot of the times. I mean, yeah, that it's just so sad. But it's good to know that they all spoke up, you know, saying that they saw that, because it just kind of really helped pinpoint where they were, especially seeing as they're traveling not off the grid per se, but you know, they're in a van, they're traveling places, they might not be in the same state the next day, you know. So I think that was really great.
It also just makes you want to know, like, what were they arguing about? Like,
I know
what continued to just cause so much tension and
like, why
stress?
Are you so pissed, bro?
Like, to the extent though that she was like crying too though, and like, this isn't the first time that she's been seen in public. They were already seen twice in public. So to me, that's already like okay, so how many times has this happened outside of the public eye? Right,
that we don't know about. Yeah, or like, what was she enduring behind the scenes or in the... I mean, imagine living in a van with this, your soon-to-be murderer.
And I mean, we've seen the photos of it. It's just like Ford Transit. It's not a lot of space.
No, and I'll post the photos on all the social media so you guys can kind of get an idea of like how it looked inside. It looks really cute, like the way that they ended up moving things around so they could live in it. But yeah, like you said, it's a small area. It's not, you know, and especially seeing how everything turned out, it's just really sad.
It really is.
Yeah, and so that same day, Gabby's mom received an odd text from Gabby's phone saying no service in Yosemite. Am I saying Yosemite right?
Yosemite?
Oh my God, it's so bad. Okay, no service in Yosemite. so bad. You guys are going to hear a lot of that as we keep, as you keep coming in to see a lot of the episodes.
We'll have to launch an episode of just bloopers.
No, we will. I'll probably keep that in there just to show us a little bit who we are. So yeah, she receives a text from Gabby's phone saying no service in Yosemite, which felt really out of place because they weren't in Yosemite. So many believe that Brian may have actually sent that text himself, attempting to mislead her family.
So weird.
I know, but what can you do when you're a psychopath?
Well, yeah, but I also feel like the gut feeling, and
I know
if her mom immediately was like, no, that's weird,
and mother's instincts, mothers know.
That's why you got to have a code.
Yeah, and especially since yeah, just I feel so bad for her family. It's just horrible. But on September 1st of 2021, so the last time they hear from her is August 27th, right? So it's like, what, a couple days later? Brian returns to his parents' home in Northport, Florida without Gabby, but driving the van.
I was just going to say, in her van?
Yep, but driving the van that they shared, which is Gabby's van. It's under her name.
What?
Right, so off the bat, red flags.
Yeah.
Red flags. My finger is directly being pointed at you. My finger, my toes.
Anything you can point at.
Anything you can point at, I'm pointing at him because it's also the highest probability of, if you're murdered, that your partner did it.
Well, it's also just like, why? And you're just going to show up like so casually back at home?
Oh, just wait, because it gets hairier.
Oh, man.
So when Gabby's family tried to contact Brian, he refused to respond. He went radio silent.
Red flag.
Another red flag. I know. And his family wouldn't talk either. The Laundries themselves, his family, his mom and dad, would not cooperate with the investigation. And so obviously that raised a lot of questions and suspicions, and people began to wonder, what did they know?
No, 100%. They had...
Yeah.
The fact that they were also staying quiet to me tells me that, oh, that's them trying to protect their son.
Right. And so that silence was painfully loud. Gabby's parents were desperate for answers. And on September 11th of 2021, they officially reported her missing, sparking a nationwide search. And when I say nationwide, babe, I mean it. I mean, you remember that. She was plastered everywhere. The case was on the news. Media outlets were constantly posting. There was hikers near those areas that were looking for Gabby as well. And I even remember being on TikTok at the time and seeing the case left and right. I remember I saw this guy that looked like Brian Laundrie, and he was even having to post saying like, guys, I'm not Brian, because he was like worried for his safety. But even at the time, I remember I was doing my nails at Two's, and my nail tech guys, shout out to Two, and the girlies there were talking about it, and we were all just talking like facts on the case and theories, opinions. Even my nail tech Two was all about it, while we're just kind of getting our claws like refilled.
No, I remember this. Like I remember it was just like TikTok turned into basically a bunch of at-home FBI agents, because everyone was like, look at this. Somebody posted
everyone
this
was
photo.
Analyzing everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's where in the last good couple of years, the term couch detective has really kind of made its way up there, because a lot of people do play detective at home, but they also help solve a lot of cases, shed a lot of light to a lot of these things. And so there's a lot, it's good to always have, the saying, better to have more eyes on it than one. So it was just honestly crazy if you think about it. Come to learn that on August 27th, the last time we know about Gabby, travel bloggers Jen and Kyle Bethune, I hope I'm saying that right, guys, were exploring areas around Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park in search of a campsite when they noticed Gabby's van and dash cam footage. They later shared the video of it on their YouTube channel, providing such a great lead to the case as well. And so that's what I mean by in the sense of like nationwide search.
Wait, so they literally
they were driving through there, they were making their way there, and they have their dash cam, and I guess they must have noticed, oh, I remember when they were looking at the footage and obviously knowing about Gabby Petito's case and Brian and all that, they noticed the van. And so
that's
I know. But sadly, on September 19th of 2021, the search came to a tragic end when Gabby's remains were found in Grand Teton National Park. The autopsy confirmed that she died from strangulation, a violent end that likely occurred 3 to 4 weeks before she was found.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
So a whole 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But it also like just straight up strangulation.
Well, if you think about it, the autopsy confirmed that she died from strangulation, and it's likely that it occurred 3 to 4 weeks before. So that kind of aligns really well with when the last time she was seen. Now, here's where things take a twist that sparked countless conspiracy theories all throughout. On September 17th of 2021, only days after Gabby's remains were found, Brian disappeared.
Hold up, what?
Yes, he disappears. He left his parents' home and vanished into the Carlton Reserve in Florida.
I remember hearing about like him just disappearing.
Yeah, and his parents stayed silent for weeks. For weeks while there's a nationwide search. Like, everyone's looking for him at this point, too, because they're like, bro, you haven't said anything. We know it's you. Like, there's no way it isn't.
Also, like, why don't you just help? If your son's on the run, obviously, I'm sorry, but if you're not willing to help, then that also points the finger at you, too.
Yeah, you should also be, and that's the thing, too. The fact that you as a parent, you also can't be like, oh yeah, I know his fiance is missing and she actually she's found dead, murdered.
And she was strangled.
And all that. But, my son wants to go on a hike, wants to find himself. I don't know. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
No.
So his parents stayed silent for weeks until October 20th, when they joined the search. Out of nowhere, they conveniently, the day that Brian's remains were discovered, conveniently, they had just so happened to go out and help.
No, they had to have known that he was dead.
No, and it was quick. Like, they went out, and maybe, I mean, don't quote me on the timing, but it was so quick. Where it's like, yeah, we found his remains. They found the remains, and I'm like, wow. So the timing, obviously, to that just leads to so many. Like, it's like we know. We just need you guys to confirm it, and I think it's just better if you're honest. Like, let's just be honest.
Oh my god! And I can also I can only imagine the FBI and the local police were probably just itching because they probably knew. Like, they knew, but it's like, how fast can you in reality get a warrant to actually get all that? Even though all signs are pointing. Right.
And from the jump, since Brian came back, like, they were lawyered up. Like, no joke. There's footage, body cam footage of the cops showing up to Brian's family's house. And, hey, have you seen Gabby? And her van's just parked in the driveway, and we're towing it, like, we're taking it. And they're like, yeah, if you have any questions, just call our lawyer. Like, we're not answering any questions. So to me, it's obvious.
No, you guys knew something.
Right. And so that's exactly what many people believe, that they obviously knew Brian's location all along with that he murdered Gabby. And it wasn't just the public who wondered about this, because investigators and Gabby's families had so many questions too, which is just so bizarre. But in the aftermath, details emerged that made the case even more chilling. I know, get ready. Because after Brian's body was found, a notebook was recovered nearby containing what he claimed was his confession. In his note, Brian claimed that Gabby's death was a mercy killing gone wrong.
Wait, hold on. A mercy killing?
Yes, I'm going to read you the note because you could just tell it's BS all over. The statement... That statement was just both cryptic and unconvincing to many. So the note, when they found it, his backpack was pretty wet. I mean, he was kind of in a swampy area. The water rose, so a lot of his belongings were a little bit,
destroyed.
Yeah, a little bit. But imagine writing a suicide note or claiming what happened that we know didn't. He wrote pen on paper. So this is just pretty much the transcript of the 8 pages of Brian Laundrie's notebook. So here's what he says.
Oh, Lord.
Gabby, I wish I was right at your side. I wish I could be talking to you right now. I'd be going through every memory we made, getting even more excited for the future. But we lost our future. I can't live without you. I lost every day we could have spent together, every holiday. I'll never get to play with... Not sure what that word is again. Never go hiking with TJ. I loved you more than anything. I can't bear to look at our photos to recall great times because it is why I cannot go on. When I close my eyes, I will think of laughing on the roof of the van, falling asleep to the side of eligible word at the Crystal Geyser. I will always love you. If you were reading Gab's journal, looking at photos from our life together, flipping through old cards, you wouldn't want to live a day without her. Knowing that every day you'll wake up without her, you wouldn't want to wake up. I'm sorry to everyone this will affect. Gabby was the love of my life, but I know, adored by many. I'm so very sorry to her family because I love them. I considered her younger siblings my best friends. I am sorry to my family. This is a shock to them as well as a terrible grief. They loved as much, if not more than me. A new daughter to my mother, an aunt to my nephews. Please do not make this harder for them. This occurred as an unexpected tragedy, is what he claims. Rushing back to our car, trying to cross the streams of a word that we couldn't make out. Before it got too dark to see, too cold. I hear a splash and a scream. I could barely see. I couldn't find her for a moment. Shouted her name. I found her breathing heavily, gasping. She was freezing cold. The blazing hot national parks in Utah. The temperature had dropped to freezing and she was soaking wet. I carried her as far as I could from the stream toward the car, stumbling, exhausted and shocked. Then when a word that we couldn't make out, and knew I couldn't safely carry her. I started a fire and spooned her as close to the heat. She was so thin, had already been freezing too long. I couldn't at the time realize I should have started a fire first, but I wanted her out of the cold back to the car. From where I started the fire, I had no idea how far the car might be. Only knew it was across the creek. When I pulled Gabby out of the water, she couldn't tell me what hurt. She had a small bump on her forehead that eventually got larger. Her feet hurt, her wrist hurt. She was freezing, shaking violently. While carrying her, she continually made sounds of pain. Laying next to her, she said little, lasping between violent shakes, gasping in pain, begging for an end to her pain. She would fall asleep and I would shake her awake, fearing she shouldn't close her eyes if she had a concussion. She would wake in pain, start her whole painful cycle again, furious that I was the one waking her. She wouldn't let me try to cross the creek, thought like me that the fire would go out in her sleep and she'd freeze. I don't know the extent of Gabby's injuries, only that she was in extreme pain. I ended her life. I thought it was merciful, that it's what she wanted. But now I see all the mistakes I made. I panicked. I was in shock. But from the moment I decided took away her pain, I knew I couldn't go on without her. I rushed home to spend any time I had left with my family. I wanted to drive north and let James or TJ kill me, but I wouldn't want them to spend time in jail over my mistake, even though I'm sure they would have liked to. I'm ending my life not because of fear of punishment, but rather because I can't stand to live another day without her. I've lost our whole future together. Every moment we could have shared. I'm sorry for everyone's loss. Please do not make life harder for my family. They lost a son and a daughter, the most wonderful girl in the world. Gabby, I'm sorry. I have killed myself by this creek in the hopes that animals may tear me apart, that it may make some of her family happy. Please pick up all my thanks. Gabby hated people who litter.
Oh my God.
I know.
It also, I'm just sorry, she was complaining of pain of her wrist and her feet.
Doesn't make any sense. I know.
That to me is, so then she must have also had injuries from you grabbing her wrist.
Right, but then in the autopsy say that she died from strangulation.
So it's like, she definitely didn't die of drowning.
He's just, you could clearly tell that he's making up his own story. I also feel like, why didn't you just go ahead and tell that before you decided to go do that?
Just tell the actual story.
Right. But no, if that's genuinely what happened, say the story. But no, obviously it's and it's just sad because he took someone's life away who was so beautiful, so great. She had all this light. She would have been something great to this world, and then he goes and takes his own life and leaving so many unanswered questions. So selfish.
Oh my God.
So, on top of this letter, another letter surfaced from Brian's mother, which she had addressed to Brian and written before his disappearance. The letter bizarrely included instructions that said, burn after reading. This strange detail only fueled the disbelief that, obviously, the Laundries may have known more than they let on.
I'm sorry, what?
Yep. So the notorious burn after reading letter that Brian's mom gave Brian before his disappearance, she wrote, I just want you to remember, I will always love you, and I know you will always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing will or could ever divide us, no matter what we do, or where we go or what we say. We will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags.
Oh my God.
If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts.
What?
She ended the letter by saying, nothing can separate us, not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not threats, not even sin, not the unthinkable or the thinkable can get between us. Not time, not miles and miles and miles. And she also included a Bible verse from Romans 8:3-8.
That screams that he killed her.
I know. And it screams that obviously they knew.
Yeah. And not in a merciful way, like he said.
Right, exactly. And she had claimed that she was just kind of trying to connect with Brian and repair their relationship, because apparently when he left home, I guess it just kind of grew a little bit of strain. But to be honest, why would you write burn after reading?
That I know.
Yeah, that's like so strange.
To me, that's an immediate... Oh, you need to get rid of this? That way I don't ever get in trouble if this ever surfaces.
And apparently she claims that the letter was written before Brian and Gabby were even left for their journey.
I'm sorry, what?
I know, and they found it. I don't know.
No, that doesn't add up.
Yeah, because it's not dated. Like, she didn't date the letter.
Of course she's not. She thought it was going to get burned.
I know. It just, honestly, just the fingers are pointing. The fingers are pointing, and, I get that you want to show your son like love and convey to him all this stuff, but I don't know. I just think the situation that everything happened, the fact that you also didn't speak to Gabby's family, didn't help with anything, it's just so sad.
If you were helping and everything, then maybe I feel like, oh yeah, I wrote that way prior, that'd be more believable.
Right. If they were more honest and open about it from the jump, yeah. And so that's right. And that detail just really fueled the belief that the Laundries may obviously have known more than they let on. And so obviously it raises a lot of red flags. Gabby's parents were devastated, not just by Gabby's loss, but by the Laundries' silence and secrecy. And so as a result, Gabby's family filed a civil lawsuit against the Laundries, seeking justice not just for Gabby, but for all the families who've lost loved ones to domestic violence. And so Gabby's parents filed a lawsuit against Brian Laundrie's parents in March of 2022. The lawsuit was for intentional infliction of emotional distress, claiming that the Laundries knew that their son Brian had killed Gabby and decided to intentionally withhold that from them. The lawsuit also alleges that the Laundries acted with malice or great indifference to Gabby's parents' rights. In February of 2024, the families finally reached a confidential settlement to avoid further legal expenses and prolonged personal conflict. The family's attorney has confirmed that they did both agree to certain terms, for resolution. Yeah. And that the family statement really just expressed hope to close this chapter of their lives and honor the legacy of Gabby. And so the official documents have yet to be filed with the courts, but that's pretty much where everything got left off. And thankfully they were able to, get some type of justice for Gabby's. Yeah. And so that is the case of Gabby Petito. How are you feeling?
This is... obviously I knew a lot of the case just because of TikTok, but some of these bigger details, I'm just like...
The aftermath. Yeah. It's just such a sad story. Yeah. And Gabby's story is obviously very tragic on just so many levels, so many missed interventions from the police, there were so many unanswered questions and obviously uncooperative witnesses. And her family has been working to bring awareness and change to that. They even started the Gabby Petito Foundation, started in her memory, and supports victims of domestic abuse, which, obviously is an important reminder that no life should be forgotten, which is great. It
was intense.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm walking away with frustration toward his family and him, but then I also walk away with a bunch of sympathy for her family, because you think about people that go missing or are murdered. At the end of the day, all you want is closure, right? And I feel
answers. You want those answers.
Isn't the true answers, right? Sure, to an extent, yes. The family got the official answer. Right. Yes, Brian did kill her. Could you just told them exactly what happened?
Right.
No matter how difficult that is, to me, that's worth more money than anything to them. And I'm sure that they would have cared about having the actual story of what happened.
Well, thank you for joining us today on Macabre Mondays' very first episode. Today's story reminds us to always look deeper and remember that behind every headline is a life. Gabby's story deserves to be remembered and learned from, and we hope sharing it brings some light to her memory.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have a story that's strange, sinister, or downright spooky, send it our way. You can email us at macabremondays@gmail.com or head over to macabremondays.com to submit your story. Yours just might be featured in an upcoming listener episode.
Follow us on social media by searching Macabre Mondays for photos of today's episode, updates, and a little extra spooky fun. Stay tuned, more mystery is just around the corner. We'll see you next Monday for another sinister, strange, and spooky episode. But until then, stay curious and stay safe. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
We want to give a huge shout out to the incredible resources that helped us put together this comprehensive look at the Gabby Petito case. We relied heavily on reporting from several trusted news organizations to ensure accuracy and provide a detailed timeline of events. We'd like to thank NBC News for their in-depth Gabby Petito case timeline, CNN for their coverage on Gabby's death being ruled a homicide, People magazine for their detailed timeline of Gabby and Brian Laundrie's relationship, ABC News for the reporting on Brian Laundrie's death being ruled a suicide, and USA Today for providing access to crucial 911 call from a witness. Also, shout out to all the TikTok content creators out there that were constantly posting about this case, giving all their thoughts and opinions on it as well. It was so enlightening to learn. These sources were invaluable in our research, and we encourage you to check them out for further information.